The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello everyone, I am Trish Connor-Cato. Welcome to Tableau video training course. Tableau is a visual analytics platform that makes it easier for people to explore and manage data, and faster to discover and share insights that can change businesses and the world. It helps people and organizations be more data-driven. Tableau supports data prep, analysis, governance, collaboration, and more. As a continuation of the Tableau Introduction video training course, this advanced course is designed to boost the students' competence when it comes to creating visualizations and creating dashboards. The course goes into considerable detail on these two subjects and explores, among other areas, how to create a range of different charts, maps, user-defined fields, as well as a host of advanced features and abilities. We'll start by connecting to a variety of data sources. This will leave you with some great workbooks to practice on and develop on your own after this course. We'll switch focus to calculating user-defined fields and use predefined Tableau functions along the way. We'll move on to customizing visualizations and utilizing some cool features to distribute your work and export data. We'll also explore advanced features that will make your visualizations more user-friendly. Module 6 is all about calculating user-defined fields, and we have 9 lessons in this module. We're going to start by using predefined functions. We've already used 2 when we created calculated fields in here. We used count D, which is distinct count, and we also use date diff, but you're going to use more in this module. Then we're going to move on to calculating percentages and showing totals. We'll use more predefined functions when we apply the if-then logic and apply logical functions. You're going to learn how to show the percentage of totals, discretizing data, manipulating text, and then aggregating data. So you've already seen this in action, and that's when you created a calculated field using a predefined function. The editor window will let you know if the syntax is incorrect for the function you're using, which is extremely helpful. I've also included on this slide a link to all of the functions that are available in alphabetical order in Tableau, and then another link for all the logical functions that are available in Tableau. So in Tableau, I'm back on the number of customers by state province map. And we're going to create another calculated field here using the predefined max function. So we want to see the maximum amount of sales per state province on our map. So we're going to go up to Analysis menu and choose Create Calculated Field. And we're going to name this one Max Sales. Now, if you notice, and it was open on mine when I first came in here, but on the right side, you have a right pointing arrow, and that is an alphabetical listing of all of the predefined functions in Tableau. So as you scroll through that list, you'll notice that's where we got count D earlier, that we used distinct count, and we also use date diff from that list. This time, we're going to scroll down until we see the max function and double click it. So, and also on the right side, it gives you the syntax for it. So you can give it either one expression or multiple expressions separated by a comma. It tells you what it will return, and it always gives you an example. And that example is exactly what we're going to use. So in the editor window, it's already flashing inside the parentheses. We're going to start typing sales, and we're going to get sales in there. Our calculation is valid, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. In order to see the max sales amount on our map, we're going to go to our field list, and under measure names, we're going to click and drag max sales, and we're going to drop it on the label in the marks card. So now you have both on the label, you have your count of customers and you have the maximum sales amount for that particular state. So let's take a look. Let's hover over North Dakota. So they had 2 customers in North Dakota, and the maximum sales amount for that state is $705. And let's go ahead and save. And I'm going to go back to the last sheet, sales by region, and bring up a new sheet. On our new sheet, we're going to create a table, and then we'll calculate percentages of total sales in our table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select order date, the order date field, and I'm going to put that in columns, and I'm going to leave it on year. And then I'm going to use state province under location, not the group that we created, but I'm going to do state province in rows. Then I'm going to drag the sales measure to the text mark on the marks card. So we have our basic table structure here. Now under location, let's drag state province to filters, or excuse me, we don't want state province and filters. Drag country region to the filter shelf and filter it just for the United States. So I put a check mark in front of US and I clicked OK. So we just don't have the Canadian provinces showing in here in this table. Now we're seeing the actual sales total for each year for each state, and we want to see the percentage of the sales total, and we want it by each year. So to do that, we're going to go to the analysis menu. You're going to hover over percentage of, and it gives you all of these choices. So since our years are in columns and we want it by year, we're going to choose column. So what's happening here, let's look at Alabama, for instance. It's saying the Alabama sales total for 2019 is 1.27% of the total sales for 2019. So that means that each column grand total would be 100%. And we can choose to show the grand totals here. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to go back to the analysis menu, hover over totals, and choose show column grand totals. And now if you scroll all the way down at the end of your table, at the bottom of your table, the last row is grand total, and all of them equal 100% because we did the percentages by column. Let's go ahead and add another field to this table. Grab the category field and drag it to rows to the right of state province. And since we are still doing the percentage by columns, so it's now showing, it's just broken up in categories now, right? So the categories are there, but at the bottom, you still have your 100% for each column's grand total. So you can add more detail unless you change the way the percentage is being calculated. Like we're not going to change it. It's still going to calculate to 100% by the column. And we'll name this sheet, and I'm using the percent symbol, so percent sales by category and state. And I'm going to save. Now we're ready to move into applying the if-then logic. And so we're going to be creating more calculated fields in this section using some predefined functions. And so we're going to bring up a new sheet for this. And on this sheet, let's go ahead and put order date in columns. And we're going to do profit to rows and sales to text, or label rather. And using show me, we're going to convert this into a text table. So we get the profit and the sales by the year of order date. And I'm going to go ahead and collapse show me. Now we're ready to create our calculated field. So I'm doing it from analysis. And this one, we're going to name profit status. And so with this one, we're going to just type it in and then I'll explain it to you, and we'll use our shortcuts so we aren't making too many typos. So I'm going to actually collapse this list of predefined functions on the right side. And we're going to type the letter I, and we're going to get the if function in there. We'll get it all in, and then I'll explain it. And then we want the profit field. So I'm going to start typing profit and select that measure off the list. And then I'm going to type the greater than symbol and a 0. Start typing the word then, and it is a predefined function, so go ahead and get it in. And now we need to put the next thing in single quotes. It's a text value that doesn't exist in our data set. So we're going to do a single quote and type the word profitable, and then close the single quote. Now you're going to start typing the word else, and you want to grab else if off the list. And we're going to use the profit field again. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that measure. And as soon as I see it on the list, I stop typing. I've made so many typos. We're going to do an equal sign here and a 0. And we're going to start typing the word then again and grab it from the list. Now at this point, I'm going to press enter. I don't want to scroll across to have to see the rest of the function, so I'm splitting it up. And because I pressed enter, it tells me the calculation contains errors, and that's because it's not complete at this point. So I'm on the next line, and in single quotes, I'm going to type break even. And then I'm going to start typing else, and I'm going to grab else, not else if this time, just else. And in single quotes, I'm going to type the word loss. And then even though it won't force me to scroll, I'm going to press enter again, and then start typing the word end, and we're going to grab end. I like my if and my end to be at the same margin level so I can make sure that I have it there. But it's not necessary to do that or even to break it down by, using enter at all. I just don't want to have to scroll across to see a full function. So this says, if the profit value is greater than 0, then show the word profitable. Else if, meaning if it's not greater than 0, but it equals 0, then show the word break even. If neither of those is true, so it's not greater than 0, it's not equal to 0, then we want it to show the word loss. Let's go ahead and click OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag our profit status field to rows in front of measure names. So now you can see based on the value of the profit, it's either break even, loss, or profitable. based on our if, then, else if, then else structure that we used. And we're going to name this sheet Profit Status by Year. And save. Let's make a copy of the profit status sheet. So again, I'm using my control key, clicking and holding and just dragging it slightly to the right. And I'm on my profit status by year 2 sheet now. So we're going to create another calculated field here. Let's go back up to analysis and grab it. And this one, we're going to name simple profit status. Now, I'm going to show you something. If you expand so you can see the right arrow and you see all of the fields that are available, go ahead and scroll down until you see the if function and select it. And if you look on the right, you can see that that tests a series of expressions returning the then value for the first true expression. So we did if and then an expression, then do this. If that expression is true, then this. If it's not true, go to the next one, which is else if, evaluate that expression. If that's true, then do what is after that. And you're not limited to how many else ifs, I believe. I usually limit myself to some other languages I use 7, but you can have a huge long one if necessary. Now I want you to click on the one that says I if. That stands for immediate if. And this is the one we're going to use for this simple profit status. It checks whether a condition is met, and it will return one value if true, another value if false. You can have an optional third value or null if unknown. So it only allows you to have 3 different things in this one. And so it is limited. And so I'm going to go ahead and double click immediate if. We'll build it and then I'll explain it. I think this one is a lot simpler than the one we did previously. So we're going to use the profit field here. And then we're going to do a greater than symbol. And we're going to do 0, comma. And now we're going to do in single quotes, the word profit, close the quotes, another comma, and in single quotes, the word loss. So we're telling it, if the profit is greater than 0, display the word profit. If it's not, display the word loss. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. And now what we want to do is we want to swap out our profit status calculated field for the simple profit status one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the profit status pill that's in the rows. And I'm going to drag simple profit status up to rows before measure names. So now we're either getting profit or loss. No break even for this one. And we're going to rename this sheet to just profit or loss. And as usual, save. We're going to use another logical function here. We're going to use the logical function of and we're going to nest it within the if-then construct. So let's bring up a new sheet for this. And on this sheet, let's drag sales to columns and quantity to columns. And the first thing we're going to do is we want to make both of these dimensions. So right click on sum of sales in columns. And instead of making it a measure, we want it to be a dimension. And do the same thing with your sum of quantity. And so now what we want to do is grab our market segment field and drag it to rows. So we're seeing sales and quantity for market segments. Now we want to make this a dual axis. So we're going to move quantity from columns. I'm going to just click and drag it onto the sales portion of the graph. And when I see the dashed line, I'm going to drop it. So now I have a dual axes chart. And what we don't need is the measure names card over on the right. So I'm going to do its drop down and hide that card. All right, so now we're ready to create our calculated field, and it's based on the market segment field. So just another way, so far we've been using the analysis menu for this, but what we're going to do this time in our fields list, right click on market segment and choose create and then calculated field. So when you do it that way, it includes the field already in the editor. We're going to name it consumer segment. And we're going to click before the market segment in its open bracket in the editor window. And we're going to start typing if and grab it from the list. So you're going to press your end key to get to the outside of the outer bracket on market segment. And we're going to type an equal sign, and in single quotes, we're going to type consumer because it's a member of the market segment. So we need to put it in single quotes. And now we're going to use the logical function and. So I'm going to start typing the word and get it in there. And then we're going to go for the sales field. We want greater than equal 1,000. And I'm going to use the logical function and again, and now this time I'm going to press enter so I don't have to scroll across. We're going to grab the quantity field and we're going to choose greater than equal 5. Then we're going to use the then function. In single quotes, type the word true. And then we're going to use the else function. And in single quotes, type the word false. And so I'm getting my calculation contains errors. Let's see. And that's because I need that end function. So I'm going to do enter and then start typing it, grab it, and now our calculation is valid. So we gave it multiple things to test, right? The market segment has to equal consumer, and the sales has to be greater than or equal to 1,000, and the quantity has to be greater than or equal to 5. If all of those things are correct, it will give us the word true, or else it will give us the word false. So let's go ahead and click OK. So now we're going to drag our consumer segment to rows in front of market segment. And so notice, first of all, since we said that it had to be consumer, right? The only true is showing consumer. And it's only showing those things that meet the criteria, that the sales are greater than or equal to 1,000 and the quantity is greater than or equal to 5. let's grab quantity in our field list and drag it to tooltip on the marks card. So now in the true section, if you hover over any of the marks, you'll see that the sales are greater than 1,000 and the quantity is greater than or equal to 5. And so the other thing we can do is let's right click on market segment and show filter. So that's a way of getting a field in the filters shelf as well as showing the filter on the right at the same time. In the filter shelf, we're going to do the drop down arrow and edit filter. And let's just get rid of corporate and home office on this one and apply. And click OK. So we're just seeing the true and falses for consumer. If we hover over any of those marks on false, like the first one, the sales are not high enough and nor is the quantity, right? So they're still in the right segment, but they don't meet all of the criteria. And over on your filter card on the right, we can go ahead and click all again if you want to see all. And we decide that we're going to hide the field label for rows. So I'm going to right click on either consumer segment or market segment and just hide field labels for rows. And this sheet, we're going to name consumer sales. We'll put greater than equal 1,000. Oops. And quantity, I'm using QTI, greater than and equal to 5. And so the other thing I decided is let's go ahead and filter it by consumer again. So I'm going to go ahead and use the card on the right to just filter by consumer. And then I'm going to right click on the filters in the filter shelf and uncheck show filter. So we leave it like that. So let's go ahead and save. And our next lesson here is discretizing data, which just basically means changing a field from continuous to discrete. And so we're going to go to an existing sheet for this one. We want the days to ship by subcategory and category sheet. So I'll point out that we have the week of the order date showing on the x-axis at the bottom, and it's a continuous unbroken line. We're going to change that. And then we're going to do that is we're going to right click on week of order date in the column shelf. And down toward the bottom, we're going to select discrete instead of continuous. So the whole thing flips. Now you don't have an x-axis, and each week is acting as a label at the top of the visualization. Now, to me, this makes the visualization a lot more complicated to read. So we're going to right click on the week of order date in the column shelf again and change it back to continuous. Now let's go to the previous sheet, the sales and quantity by quarter sheet. And we'll do a similar thing with this one. And we have a dual axis here. So let's see what happens if we change quantity to discrete. So I'm going to go up to the columns shelf and right click on sum of quantity and change that to discrete. And now you're seeing the quantities kind of like all grouped together. And we're going to change that back to continuous as well. And then we have to make it a dual axis again. So I'm going to grab the sum of quantity off of the column shelf, drag it over the sales portion of the visualization, and when I see the dashed line, drop it. Or we could have done Control Z to switch it back as well. Go ahead and save your file. And so let's go back to our very last sheet in this workbook. And that would be our consumer sales greater than or equal to 1,000 sheet. And then create a new sheet. And on this sheet, we're going to use a string function to manipulate text. So let's go ahead and grab product name and put that in rows. And we'll put the sales field in the text box on the marks card. So we have a list of all the product names and their sales values in a table format. So now we're going to right-click on the product name field in the field list. We're going to hover over Create, and we're going to create a calculated field again. And we're going to name this one Starts with 3M. So product name is already there because of the way we came in here. And we're going to click in front of it, making sure you're outside of the opening bracket. And we're going to start typing the word start. So you'll notice the function starts with. That is a string function or a text function. Now, the thing is, when I selected it, right, it didn't include product name in the parentheses. So I'm going to grab product name and do including its brackets, and do Control X, click inside the parentheses, and Control V. So now it's in the right place. After product name, still inside the parentheses, but after its closing bracket, we're going to do a comma, and then in a single quote, we're going to type 3M. So we want this one to show product names that begin with 3M. We want to focus on 3M. And we're going to choose Apply and click OK. So let's drag our Starts with 3M to the rows shelf in front of product name. And so you'll see it gives us either a true or a false. If I go ahead and sort the starts with, it brings the true up top, and you'll see all of the product names that begin with 3M. And then we have all of the product names that do not begin with 3M listed next to false. So starts with is a string function in Tableau. And what we're going to just do is we're going to name this sheet 3M sales versus non-3M sales. The starts with string function that we used in the previous exercise didn't actually manipulate the text. It really served more as a filter. So now we're going to use one that actually manipulates the text. And we're going to do it on the percent of sales by category and state table. And so we want our states in this table to show up in all capital letters. So we're going to create a calculated field using a predefined string function to make that happen. Let's go up to Analysis, and we're going to choose Create Calculated Field, and we're going to call it Upper State. And in the editor, we're going to start typing upper and grab the upper function. And we're going to use our state province field, not the group, for this. And go ahead and click OK. So now we're going to go up to the rows shelf and delete our state province pill. And we're going to drag upper state to the rows shelf before category. So now all of our states are appearing in uppercase in this table. So that one actually does manipulate the text. And you can go ahead and save. Our last lesson in this module is aggregating data. Now, you've seen that Tableau automatically aggregates measures when you use them in a view. I'm on the last sheet in this workbook, and you can see that we use sales, the sales measure, as text here, and it automatically aggregated it to sum. And we could change that if we wanted to. When I do the drop down on it, I could change it to a dimension, but I want to leave it as a measure so it does the aggregate. Let's go ahead and create a new sheet. And on this sheet, we're going to put market segment, the market segment field in rows. And we're going to drag product name to columns. So when we do this, because there's lots of product names, right? It gives you information. It may contain up to 1849 members, and the recommended maximum is 1,000. We're going to choose to add all members. And what we want to do is we want to do an aggregate. So on product name, which is a dimension, we're going to do the drop down in the column shelf. We're going to hover over measure, and we're going to choose count. So now we're seeing the number of products per each market is what we're looking at there. So we were able to take a dimension and change it into a measure. And notice that the limited list, it was count. Let me go back here and look. Yeah, so it's not going to let you try to do a sum of product names or anything like that. You just have min, max, count, and count distinct. So we're getting a count of product names. So that's how you can aggregate a dimension, is by changing it and using one of the measure aggregates. And we're going to go ahead and name this sheet count of products by market segment. And save your file. So in Module 6, you were able to add to your repertoire of predefined functions. And we started doing that in Lesson 1. We used another predefined function, and we had already used 2 before we got to this module. Then we moved on to calculating percentages and then showing totals. And we did calculating percentages by column, so we had them by year. And then we moved into applying if-then logic, and we added on to it by applying other logical functions, like using the AND function to give more conditions. Lesson 6 is an error on this slide. That was already covered in lessons 2 and 3, so that should not be on the slide, and my apologies for that. We moved into discretizing data, which you can change a measure into a discrete field versus a continuous field, and you saw the effect of that, and we changed it back. The next lesson was manipulating text. We did 2 different functions for this, one of which didn't actually manipulate the text. It kind of served as a filter, and the second one did manipulate the text by making it uppercase. And then you learned how to turn a dimension into a measure for the purpose of aggregating data. Now we're going to get into Module 7, which is customizing and saving. And I'll mention now, before I go over the lessons with you, that we've been doing some of this stuff along the way during this course. So lesson 1, you'll learn how to add a title and a caption. In lesson 2, you'll learn how to modify font sizes and colors. We already did a modification of a font size, but we'll review again. In lesson 3, we've been applying various marks to our visualizations, but you'll get some more hands-on practice with doing it. And I'll probably have you do that once by example from me and then the rest on your own. We've been adding colors and labels for our marks on our maps, but we'll do more of that. And not only on our maps, but other visualizations. We used a reference line to create a box plot earlier, but we'll add a different reference line to a visualization in this module. And then you'll learn how to print to PDF, how to save a packaged workbook, and how to create a workbook data extract in this module. So we used a box plot reference line earlier, and we accessed it by right-clicking on the y-axis. But these are the 3 other types of reference lines that you can add to a Tableau visualization. So the lines themselves are used to identify a specific value, region, or range on a continuous axis. You can add a reference line at a constant or computed value on the axis. And then you have bands which shade the area behind the marks in the view between 2 constant or computed values on the axis. And then the distributions add a gradient of shading to indicate the distribution of values along the axis. And the distribution can be defined by percentages, percentiles, quantiles, or standard deviation. So the first thing we're going to do is add title and caption. So far, whenever we name the sheet, it also gives us the title. And I mentioned that we can separate that, right? So for the sheet tab, what we're going to do is rename it, and we're just going to call it pie chart. And it updated the title. Well, this time we're going to go up to the title, and we're going to right click, and we're going to choose Edit Title. And this way, you'll notice it defaults to the sheet name. We're going to select that placeholder. And this is where we're going to name it Sales by Market Segment. And click OK. So now our sheet name differs from our title. If you want, the process would be, if you're going to do that often, is go ahead and name your sheet and then edit the title. The other thing we want to add to this visualization is a caption. So we're going to go to the worksheet menu for that, and we're going to click on Show Caption. So notice the caption is showing at the bottom, and we can right click on it down there and choose Edit Caption. And we're going to change the whole thing. Let me move this box over so I can see what I'm going to talk about here. In the caption, we're going to say, would really like to increase home office sales. Any ideas? ? And click OK. And then we decide that we want the title of our visualization to be in a larger font, to be bold, and to have a font color. So I'll start by showing you the way you're not going to do it. And the way you're not going to do it is by right-clicking on the title and choosing Format Title. Notice that title pane that opens, the format pane that opens on the left, only allows you to address the title and captions, shading, and border. So that's not the way that we're going to do this. We're going to do the X to close that format pane. The way we are going to do it is by right-clicking in a blank area of your visualization and going to Format from there. So here you can see under Default that you have the ability to format the title here under Default. So we're going to click on the drop-down arrow to the right of Title. Let's make it 18 points. We'll make it bold. And I'm going to go ahead and give mine an orange color. And then I'll click away from that. So I'm back on the Count of Products by Market segment sheet. And for this one, we're going to apply another mark to this visualization. And so we can do that a couple of different ways. Let's grab our sales field from the field list, drag it onto the graphic, and when you see the dashed line, let it go so we get a dual axis thing. Now notice it, obviously because we did that, I'm going to go to Show Me. It changed the chart type for us when we did that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it back to a table here. And actually, no, I'm going to change it to a horizontal bar. And we'll leave it on separate axes for right now. So you can apply more marks as necessary, as you see here. And the other thing we can do is add colors and labels, which you've seen already. So we decide we don't want to see the market segment label. So I'm going to right click on that. And I'm going to choose Hide Field Labels for Rows. And then I want to change this count of product name down here. So I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to choose Edit Axis. And when the Edit Axis box pops up, I'm going to go down to the bottom where it says Title. And I'm going to change it to using the pound sign to represent number of products. And then I'm going to close that Edit Axis box. And now we're going to do something that we've done previously as well. We're going to go to the label box on the marks card and check Show Mark Labels. And so we're getting that showing for the products. Now, if we want to show the labels for sales, on your marks card at the bottom, click on Some Sales. Now click on Label, Show Mark Labels. So whatever you have selected over here is what it's going to perform that action on. To add some color to the chart, it's going to work pretty much the same way, except we're going to use the color mark. For products, I have the count of products selected here in the marks card. I'm going to click on color. And for my products, I'm going to do an orange color. And then I'm going to select sales and assign a color to your sales bars that you wish to have. And lastly, we're going to edit the title. So I'm going to get rid of sheet name placeholder here. And I'm going to use the pound sign for number of products and sales by market segment. And click OK. So now I'm back on the sales by state map. And to show you how you can change your mark sizes. So notice we have on this map, if we look at our marks card, we have the sum of sales is the sizing that's being used, and it's based on the circle. So we're going to click on the size panel on the marks card, and we're going to increase the size of our marks just a little bit, and you can see how it translates to your map. Now we'll go back to our count of products by market segment sheet, and we're going to add a reference line to the products portion of the visualization. So I'm going to right click on the axis there where it says number of products and add reference line. And so we've used the box plot, and I showed you the slide that showed you the difference between a line, a band, and a distribution. For the first one, we're going to leave it on line. We're going to do the scope of the entire table, so that entire visualization. And notice it's doing an average count by default of product name. So it's going to show the average on the reference line. And we're going to leave it on line only, and we're going to click OK. So you'll see in your number of products bar graph that we have that average reference line, and when we hover over it, it's giving us the average number of products. So you can clearly see which segments are close to average, way below average, or above average. Now, let's right click on that same number of products axis again, and we're going to remove the reference line. Right click again, add reference line. This time we'll do a band. We'll do it for the entire table. And this time the band is doing the maximum count of product names, or the maximum count of products, right? We're going to change that to average as well, just for consistency. And without even clicking OK, you can see that it shades the area. It's saying here, I think that says minimum. It's overlaying a label, and then the average, where the average would be. And if we hover over that band, I have to do OK for that. If we hover over the band, it doesn't show a tooltip, but if you hover over minimum or average, it will give you those values. We're going to do this a third time. So we're going to right click on the axis, remove the reference line. This time I'm going to have you add the distribution one. Using the same scope. And so with this one, it's going to show 60% or 80% of average. And we could change that if we wanted to. So this is where you can use percentages, percentiles, quantiles, or standard deviation. So what we're going to change it to, we're going to leave it on percentages, but we're going to change it to 50 and 80. And leave it on average, and then we'll collapse that and you'll see it update. And we're going to go ahead, and you can actually see without clicking OK where 50% of average is and where 80% of average is. Now, just to leave one on here, let's go back and change it to line for the entire table, and then click OK. And you want to go ahead and save at this point. So in Tableau, you can print an entire workbook or an individual sheet to a PDF. And so we're going to do that on this same count of products by market segment sheet. And we're going to do that by using the File menu. And if you look down, you'll see print and print to PDF. We're going to use print to PDF. And this is where it gives you the choice to select the entire workbook, the active sheet, or if you had multiple sheets selected, it would print those. So let me show you how to select multiple sheets. We're going to cancel that, and we'll click on profit status by year, and then hold down Control and click on count of products by market segment. So just like selecting non-contiguous sheets in Microsoft Excel is how that works. Now we're going to go back to File, Print to PDF, and this time selected sheets is going to be available for us. And you have your paper size and your orientation on the right. And then I'm going to leave both of the options selected. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So it wants to know where I want to save the PDF. And I'm just going to put it on my desktop. So I'm going to navigate there. And it wants to give it the name of the entire workbook. And I'm going to change the name there. And I'm going to say annual profit status and count of products and sales values by market segment. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. I had the setting for portrait, and I probably should have done landscape here. I also had it set to open the PDF. So I'm looking at 3 pages here. I have my profit status by year. It had to split the number of products and the sales onto 2 separate pages. So if I had done landscape, it would have done a better job of that. But then you can send that PDF. You can distribute it to other people. The next thing we're going to do is save a packaged workbook. A packaged workbook, when you save a packaged workbook, you can distribute it to other users who have the ability to open it if they have Tableau Desktop or Tableau Reader. And so what it does is it will save the workbook and a copy of any local file data sources and any locally saved background images that are used in the workbook file. Once it's packaged, the packaged workbook is no longer linked to the original data sources and images. So it creates a package for the users that you're sending it to that includes a copy of the workbook and it's packaged with your locally saved files and images. So they'll be able to use it just like you're able to use the workbook. So in order to do this, we're not going to use Sample Superstore Live because this is a built-in Tableau workbook and we don't actually have the locally saved files that are producing the data. So we're going to start by closing Sample Superstore Live. So I'm just going to the File menu and I'm choosing Close. And then we're going to reopen a workbook that we created earlier in the course. So I'm going to go to the Open a Workbook link on the right side of the Start page. And we're going to open Vehicles and Pricing because we have both of those Excel files stored locally. And we didn't create any visualizations in here. If you go to the Data Source tab, this is the file where we created a join between the 2 tables so that we can merge the data. So we have information coming in here from the vehicles file, which has that inventory tab in it, and from the pricing file. So we're going to package this because those 2 files are stored locally for us. And the way we do that is we're going to go to File, Save As. Now it's going to take you automatically to your My Tableau repository. And we're going to just name it. We don't really have to change the name, but I'm going to change the name by appending the word packaged at the end. And notice the default save as type is a .twb, which is a Tableau workbook. We're going to click on Tableau workbook and choose Tableau packaged workbook, which has the .twbx extension. And we're going to go ahead and choose save. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to File and Close. And I want to show you something. I'm going to just bring up my File Explorer window. And this is my Workbooks folder in my Tableau repository. And I just want you to see that it has a different icon. So it has like a goldish colored column on the left side of the packaged workbook icon. And the type will definitely say Tableau packaged workbook. Now you can actually take this and attach it to an email or otherwise distribute it to users that have Tableau desktop or Tableau reader, and they would be able to open it. So if somebody sends you a packaged workbook, you want to make sure it ends up in your My Tableau repository workbooks folder. So once it's in your Tableau repository, so we're seeing the tile here because we packaged it. So I'm going to get rid of that tile and the vehicles and pricing tile. If you've moved it to your correct location in your repository, you can use Open a Workbook, and then you would want to open the packaged workbook, and you would have access to what you need to have access to in order to create visualizations. And we can go ahead and use File Close to close this one again. We can get rid of the tile, and we're going to reopen Sample Superstore Live. So far, we've been working in Tableau using live connections, meaning if we go back to our data sources, like especially the ones we used earlier where we used Excel files and Access files, if we were to go and open those files and make any changes, the changes would come into Tableau automatically and impact your data source and your visualizations. With an extract, it's a little bit different. An extract functions as a batch file of sorts. Let's go ahead and go to our data source view. And we're going to focus on the upper right-hand corner where you see that our connection is live. And we're going to do the option button in front of extract. So initially it says extract will include all data. We're going to click the edit button next to it. And we want it to just include a particular year. So in the filter section, underneath the filters box, we're going to click add. And we're going to filter by the order date field and click OK. And we'll filter by a year. So I'm going to select years and go next. And I'm going to check the box in front of 2021. And at the bottom, I'm going to click OK. And now it lets me know that we have a filter on the year of order date and it's keeping 2021. And we're going to click OK at the bottom. So now the screen refreshes and it's telling you the extract includes a subset of data and it gives you the date and time where you created the extract. And now when you switch back to sheet view, it will force you to save your extract file. So notice it's in your My Tableau repository and it's in the data sources folder. And there's the extract from when we connected to SharePoint. And this one, I'll just leave it named Sample Superstore. It gives the extracts a .hyper extension. And go ahead and save. So, since we switched from live to extract, all of our visualizations and everything that we're doing on the extract. And we would have to refresh to get any updated data. So you'll notice I went to the profit status by year sheet and it's only showing 2021, right? Everything in here is now adjusted for the extract filter that we used. So all of your visualizations would have updated with the extracted information. That's kind of how that works. Now we can go back to the data source tab, or data source view, I should say, that you access it from a tab. And so we're using Sample Superstore. We don't have the original files. We can't go and manipulate them and add or extract or delete data or change data in them. But if we were able to do that, that's when you would use the refresh button to refresh your extract. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do a file save as on this one. And we're going to name it, instead of Sample Superstore Live, just change Live to Extract. And then we're going to go ahead and do File Close. If it prompts you to save the changes, say yes. And we're going to go back to our Start screen. We're going to get rid of the tile for Sample Superstore Extract and reopen Sample Superstore Live. In this module, we learned how to separate the title from the Sheet tab name by adding a title, by editing the title, and then we also added a caption which shows at the bottom of the visualization screen. And we got into some more of modifying font sizes and colors, and we did that by using the Format pane on the left side for the font sizes. And then we also used colors using the color marks on the marks card. We applied more marks to the visualization. We added some colors to those marks and labels. And then we added the 3 different types of reference lines, which are lines, bands, and distribution, to be able to see the difference between them before we settled on a line. You learned how to print to PDF, and you also learned that your trainer, that would be me, should have changed it to landscape instead of leaving it on portrait. You learned about saving a package workbook, which you can share with other users of Tableau Desktop or Tableau Reader, and how they can access it, and how the icon is different from a regular workbook as well as the extension. And we did that by using File Save As. And then instead of working with a live connection, we ended by creating a workbook data extract, which saved a .hyper file for us in our data sources folder. And if you're working with an extract and you want to get refreshed data, you have to use the refresh link on the data source view. In Module 8, we're going to focus on exporting and saving. So you'll learn how to save to Tableau Server as well as to Tableau Cloud, formerly known as Tableau Online. And you'll learn how to export both images and data. If you want to save your workbook on Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud, you're going to use the Server menu to do so. So when you go up to server, the first thing it has is sign in, and you can sign in to either Tableau server or Tableau cloud there. You can run an optimizer, open a workbook that is from either the server or the cloud. And you can publish a workbook. You can also just publish the data source for it, right? And you also have access to Tableau Public from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose Publish Workbook. And notice mine is defaulting to Tableau Cloud. If you have a Tableau server account, you could just type in the server address and then connect, and it will have you sign in. Now, for some reason, I was able to retrieve from Tableau server, but I cannot connect to it at this point. But once you connect, you'll get a secondary screen similar to what you're going to see in a moment for when you connect to Tableau Cloud. So if you put in your server address and you select connect, it will prompt you to log in, and then you'll have screens leading you along the way. The only way I can show you the process is via Tableau Cloud. So I'm going to be able to sign in. I've been able to retrieve from my server, but when I'm trying to publish, it's not letting me in. So I'm going to go ahead and get myself signed in to Tableau Cloud here, which used to be called Tableau Online. They're changing the name of it. So let me go ahead and sign in here. And when I click sign in, and again, the process is very similar for server. So it gives me this publish workbook to Tableau Cloud, right? And I have some options. So on Tableau Cloud, I actually have a Tableau training project that I'm going to select. If you don't have projects set up, you can just do the default folder. And I'm going to leave it the same name as this file. I'm not going to put in a description or add any tags. It's going to send all sheets from the workbook, or I could edit to choose the sheets that I want to publish. My permissions are the same as that folder I have there. And then it says data sources. Now this is Sample Superstore. This is one of the built-in Tableau data sources. So the actual data source is embedded in the workbook. And we're going to click edit next to that. And I can change it from embedded in workbook to publish the data source separately if I want to. And now it says one publish separately. And when I do that, this green button changes. So let me go back and change it back to embedded in workbook. And notice the green button just says publish at that point. If I say publish it separately, then it says publish workbook and one data source on that green button. I'm going to show the sheets as tabs. I don't have any external files here, but I would include any external files. If it was one of those that we had the files like from the video description, then I would check that box. And now I'm going to click the green button to publish the workbook and the one data source. And it's still in the process of publishing. When it's done, it will give me the publishing complete dialog, and I can share from that dialog if I wanted to share the workbook at this point. I'm going to go ahead and close that dialog. And I can see all of my sheets. There's a data source tab here, and here's the live connection data source for Sample Superstore. When I go back to views, that's where I see all of the sheets. And so it's in the cloud now. It's in Tableau Online, and I can share it from here. I can edit the workbook, so on and so forth. And it would be similar if we had published to the server. Once it's there, you can allow other users access to it. So whether it's Tableau Server, Tableau Public, or Tableau Cloud, you can access all three of those from the Server menu. Once you've put your workbook up on Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud, and you go back to your data source tab, it's going to look a little bit different. So the upper half is showing like the connection information, right, that we just did. So I put it in my project called Tableau Training on Tableau Cloud. And now in the lower part where your data grid is, I'm going to go ahead and do update now just so the grid repopulates. So just so you know, after you upload to the server or to the cloud, you're going to want to come back to your data source tab and update now or set it to update automatically. In Module 7, we learned how to save as a PDF, and we actually saved selected sheets as a PDF. And I said I should have changed the orientation on it when I did that. Another way to get data out of Tableau is to export images, export as an image, or export actual data. And we're going to do that now. So I'm on the sales by state map for this one. And I'm going to go up to the worksheet menu for this, hover over export, and choose image. So you have different image options at the bottom. The best way to describe them is to use all of them and see what happens. I'm going to keep it on the first one. And I'm going to show everything that's checked here by default. And then I'm going to just click on Save. So I'm going to save this image onto my desktop. It's named the same as the Sheet tab, and it's going to put it in a PNG format. You can also use JPEG, bitmap, scalable, vector graphics, SVG if you want to. I'm going to just leave it on PNG and save. So now I have the sales by state image file on my desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open it. And there you can see the image. Now I can send this to anyone that needs to see this picture of the sales by state map. Just another way of distributing Tableau information. In addition to exporting an image of this sales by state map, we can also export the data. So let's go back to the worksheet menu for this. We're going to hover over export again. And when we select data here, it's going to export it in the form of a Microsoft Access database. We can also do a crosstab to Excel. Let's start with the database. So we're going to select data there. And I'm going to put this on my desktop. Notice it's going to save it as an Access database. And I'm going to call it Sales by State Data. And I'm going to go ahead and save. So export data to access dialog comes up. It has my file name. It's going to put it in a table called data. And I'm exporting from this entire view, the entire map. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now I'm on my desktop where I saved it to, and I'm going to open this Access database. And I'm going to go ahead and enable the content. And I have one table in here, and it's called data. And so for every state, it's showing the generated latitude and longitude as well as the sum of sales. And I'm going to go ahead and close Access and bring up my Tableau again. So the other way to export the data, let's go back to Worksheet, Export, and we can do it as a crosstab to Excel. So I'm going to select that option. And when it's done, you'll see that it puts the information in an Excel workbook, just the state and the sum of the sales for each state. So different ways of getting information out of Tableau that you can share with other people that perhaps don't have Tableau so they can further manipulate data. So in Module 8, you learned ways of getting data out of Tableau. We started by saving a workbook, attempting to save a workbook on a Tableau server. I wasn't able to make the server connection. However, I showed you the similar process for saving a workbook on the web, specifically in Tableau Cloud, formerly known as Tableau Online. And you can use the server menu to export information to Tableau Server, Tableau Cloud, and Tableau Public. So we were successful in saving it to Tableau Cloud, and you saw that when you save it that way, and it's similar to the way Server acts, that it will actually open it up for you once it's saved. Then we moved on to exporting an image of a map, and we saved it onto our desktop, and that image can be shared with anyone that needs to have access to it. We then exported data two ways. We exported it into the form of a Microsoft Access database and also to Excel as a crosstab. In Module 9, we're going to explore some advanced features, multiple lessons in this module. So we're going to start by learning how to view data in Tableau. We've already worked on changing the mark size, but we'll do it again. You're going to learn how to use presentation mode, how to add annotations, and how to exclude data on the fly. In Lesson 6, we'll customize mark shapes. And in Lesson 7, we're going to learn how to add drop-down selectors. You'll also learn how to add search box selectors and slider selectors. Lesson 10, we're going to start creating animated visualization using what's called page trails. And in Lesson 11, we will be creating parameters. So a couple of terms here. Page trails are a way of animating a viz by using the pages shelf in Tableau. A parameter is a workbook variable such as a number, date, or string that can replace a constant value in a calculation, filter, or reference line. So we're going to switch over to Tableau and get started with this module. When you right-click on a blank area of a visualization, you'll get the pop-up menu, and one of the choices is View Data. Let's go ahead and click that. And it opens up a dialog where it's showing the data that's used on this particular sheet. So if you look at the top, it gives you a summary, 45 rows and 4 fields. And you can click on the Show Fields button, and it defaults to showing all of the fields. And that's what you're seeing here, the latitude and longitude that have been generated, the sales, and the state or province. You can also download this data so that you can keep it if you want. It downloads as a comma-separated values file, which you can open in Excel. I'm not going to actually save it. And so it's showing you the summary here, and you can look through the data. Kind of cool. just pulling it all together. So I go to summary, and then there's like an orders table there that's showing some information. Down at the bottom, it tells how you can tell it how many rows to show, depending on, the size of the data set. And you have a settings button that only allows you to show aliases. So an alias would be in the state and province field, all of the states are known as aliases. And we are going to go ahead and close that dialog. Now, this is not on the agenda for this module, but I want to show you another feature that can be helpful for you. Let's go to the worksheet menu and choose Describe Sheet. So it gives you a full description of the sheet. So the map is based on longitude and latitude generated. The color shows the sum of sales. The size shows the sum of sales. Details are shown for state province. So it's listing everything from the marks card. Map coloring shows 2018 population by state. That's the data layer that we added. And the view is filtered on state province, which excludes 10 members. So we got rid of the provinces in Canada. About the mark type is circle and it's not stacked. For your shells, it has what's on your rows, columns, filter, right? Detail, color, and size. Your dimensions, state province has 45 members on this sheet. And it gives you a partial list of all the members. Then it goes to measures, and it gives you the range for the latitude and the longitude, and the sum of sales range from 64 to 131.552 on this sheet. And then you have data source details. Now, the other thing you can do is you can copy this information, paste it somewhere if you need to share it with someone. We're going to go ahead and close that. So that was from the worksheet menu, and it's called Describe Sheet, or Control E to bring up that panel. So we've done this already, but let's go ahead and increase the size of our circles on this map, right? And so we do that from the marks card. If you go to size, and you can increase the size. And we had already done this in the previous module. You can increase or decrease the size. Why don't you take a moment and find another sheet and see where you want to increase the size of the marks. And I went to our heat map and increased the size of the marks. Go ahead and save your file. Now, Tableau has a presentation mode that you can use if you're connected to a flat screen or a projector and you want to show everyone your visualizations. So I went to our first sheet, the West and Southwest order count by customer sheet, and I switched it on this toolbar from standard view to entire view. Now also on the toolbar, you can get into presentation mode, and that is the icon that I'm pointing to on the screen to launch presentation mode. So go ahead and click that icon. And what it does is it gives you the full screen effect. So you're not seeing your menu bar, your toolbars, title bar, any of that. You're just seeing the visualization. And so if you notice at the bottom, you still have your sheet tabs available to you. So while you're in presentation mode, you can just go from sheet to sheet and have it display in that mode. Similar to like a slideshow, but not really. So that is how presentation mode works. And to get out of it, you can just press the escape key on your keyboard, and it will bring you out to whatever sheet you were on when you're exiting it. So a really good feature. So let's start this. We're going to add a couple of annotations to our sales by state map. But first, I want you to hover over the New Jersey mark. So it just says state, province, New Jersey, and the sales values, right? If we look at, because it's sized by the sum of sales, it looks like California, Texas, and maybe Pennsylvania have the highest sales. So let's start with Pennsylvania. What you're going to do is you're going to hover your mouse over the Pennsylvania mark and right click. And you're going to choose Annotate, and we're going to choose, we want to annotate the mark. So right where your insertion point is flashing, and this is like the same stuff that you're seeing in the legend, but we want it to pop out as an annotation. And before it, we're going to add high value. So high value state province. And we're going to click OK. So you see that it has the annotation showing high value state province for Pennsylvania and the amount of sales. And I can click away from that, and that stays visible on the map. And so I'm going to have you do the same for California and Texas. Add the words high value, make annotations for California and Texas on your own. And when you're done, your map should look like mine with the 3 annotations on it. Now, if you want to get rid of an annotation, you would actually click on it, and it puts a red border around it, and you could just press delete to get it off of there if you wanted to. I'm going to keep all 3 of these on this map. Go ahead and save your file. Now we're going to move on to excluding data on the fly. We're going to do 2 separate exercises for this, but there are 2 different ways that you can do this. And then I'll show you how to get the data included. Now on the sales by state map, we already created a filter for state province where we excluded all of the Canadian provinces. So let's just click on the Washington state mark. If you just select it, you get this pop-up that says keep only or exclude. Now, another way of doing that is by right-clicking on the Washington state mark, and you get that keep only and exclude on the pop-up menu. So I usually just click on the mark, and we're going to select exclude. So our mark disappears from Washington state. Now, since we already had a filter here, to get it back, we're going to go to our filter shelf, and we're going to right-click on state province and edit filter. And you're going to scroll down, and you see that Washington state is now filtered out. We're going to uncheck Washington and click OK. So now our mark is back for Washington state. Now, if you exclude data on a sheet that doesn't have a filter, it will automatically create a filter, and you're going to see that now. So we're going to do this on our count of products by market segment sheet. And let's right-click on the home office mark on the number of products part of the visualization. Well, actually, I'm going to just click on the home office mark, and I'm going to exclude it. Now, notice we don't have a filter here. So when I do that, it creates the filter for me, excluding home office. So if I want to get it back, I'm going to right-click on that market segment filter, and I'm going to edit the filter, and I'm going to uncheck home office, get rid of exclude as well. So I'll do all and then OK. So now I got my home office back. And if I don't need that filter, if I'm not going to be excluding on the fly, I can just click on the filter pill in the filter shelf and delete it. You've already seen how to customize mark shapes, but we'll do it again. And I'm back on Sales by State Map. And so our marks are showing as circles. And if we go to our marks card and do the drop down next to circle, we might want them to show as squares, something like that. I actually prefer the circles on the map. I find them less distracting, if that's the right word for it. I'm going to go back to the now square drop down, and I'm going to choose shape. And so now we get these open non-filled circles on there. And I'm going to go back to the drop down again and put it back on circle. We're going to start on Sales by State sheet by adding a drop down selector. And we want it to be for the states. Well, we already have state province in the filter shelf. So in the filter shelf, you're going to right click on state province and you're going to choose show filter. So it gives us this multiple values list, which takes up a lot of space on the right side. Before we change the type of selector, I want to point out a few things. So at the very top in the selector's title bar, it says state province. And then to the right of that, you have a funnel with an X. If you hover over it, it says click to show all values. Well, this is the filter that we excluded the Canadian provinces. So we don't want to click the funnel to show all values, or else it would include them again. To the right of the funnel, you have a find values icon of the magnifying glass. If I click on that, it gives me a search box, and I am going to type Vermont, and it just brings up that particular state. Now I want to clear that search, so I'm going to do the X to the right of the search box, and it clears the search, and then I'm going to do the X again to close the search box. To the right of your magnifying glass, there is a drop-down arrow. So if you look in the middle of this list, it lets you know that it's a multiple values list. That's the type of selector that we have currently. Before we change it, hover over Customize. So the list is showing that all value, right? It has the search button, include, exclude, control types, and all values button. Depending on the type of selector, your customization options will change. So you'll see this in a moment. Let's go down and make this a multiple values drop-down selector, so it doesn't take up much space. Now go back to the drop-down arrow to the right of the funnel and hover over Customize. And you see that it doesn't have a search option there, and that's why you don't have the magnifying glass. The drop-down selector does not have a search option. So again, depending on the type of selector, your customization options will vary. And we're going to click away from it. So this way, if I do the drop-down here next to multiple values, it allows me their square boxes, right? They're check boxes. So I can select multiple values if I wanted to from this list. I'm going to go down and I'm going to check Wyoming, and it's going to exclude it. So I no longer, and if I uncheck it, it will include it again, right? So we'll do another state. Let's check California, and you'll notice that its mark disappeared because it's excluded. And now I'll check it again, and it's included again. Go ahead and save your file. Let's go to our days to ship by subcategory and ship mode sheet. And this sheet already has a slider selector for order date, but we're going to add another one. So days to ship is the calculated field we created. And in the field list, I'm going to right click on it and choose show filter. So it adds it to the filter shelf and it displays a slider because it's numeric data. So whenever you have numeric data, it will automatically give you a slider. Now, if you look at the top of that slider, it doesn't have the search function. It doesn't have your magnifying glass there, but it does have the click to show all values. And I don't believe anything is excluded, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. And then I'm going to do the drop down arrow next to it. And the first thing we're going to do is look at the customize options for a slider. The readouts are the numbers at either end of the slider. So it's showing those, it's showing the slider. And because it's a slider, it's a different customization menu. For a slider, let me go back to the drop down. You can choose to have a range of values, which is what we're going to leave it on, or at least a certain amount, or at most a certain value, right? So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the title. And we're just going to, I'm going to just take everything out, and I'm just going to give it a title of days to ship. And click OK. So now if I use this slider, I can start sliding it over. So you'll notice that my visualization will change according to the slider value that I put for days to ship, right? And I can drag either end of the slider to do like a range, and then I can click in the middle of that and drag it backwards and forwards, depending on what it is I want to see. And I went ahead and expanded my slider back to its original position. So the good thing about having these on your visualization sheets is because it gives your end users more flexibility in the data that they're analyzing. Go ahead and save. So we're getting ready to create an animated visualization using page trails. But before we do so, let me show you other ways to navigate your different sheets in a workbook. So by default, it's showing your sheet tabs, which we've been using. But I want to draw your attention, and I'm going to draw some arrows here. All the way at the right-hand side of your status bar, there are 3 different icons. And these control how you're seeing your sheets. So the last icon, if you hover over it, the last icon will tell you that it's showing the sheet tabs, right? If you can get the pop-up. The first one shows you like so here it's the pop-up for the first one, show sheet sorter. So when I click on that, it brings me to this view where I can see little thumbnails of all of my sheets in the workbook. And then the second view button down there is show film strip. And so it shows the little thumbnails down at the bottom, and you can use your navigation arrows to go backwards or forwards from the first sheet to the last sheet or wherever you need to be. So you do have choices there. I'm actually going to leave mine on film strip, and I'm going to use the new sheet icon. So now the icons for new sheet, new dashboard, and new story are vertical. I'm going to use the new sheet icon to bring up a new sheet. So even though I'm in film strip, showing this film strip for my sheets, I'm going to go ahead and name that sheet the same manner. I'm going to just double click. And we're going to name this one Sales by Month over time. And we're going to grab our order date field and drag it to columns. And we're going to drag sales to rows. Change the order date from year to month. Now, another way you can do this is you can do the plus sign in front of year. It gives you quarter. You can do the plus sign in front of quarter. It gives you month. And then you can delete the year and the quarter pills. Just another way, some variety. So now you're left with the month of the order date. And now we're going to drag the month. We're going to actually control copy it from columns to the pages shelf, which we have not used yet. So we're making a copy of it and dropping it in pages. So a couple of things happened. Your line chart that was on the screen, it now just shows the mark for January sales. The rest of the line chart has disappeared. Also, notice the controls that show up on the right side of the screen. Let's talk about those. So it has the first month, January there. And if you do the drop down next to it, you'll see it goes all the way through December because we chose month of order date. It also has a back arrow and a forward arrow. So if I wanted to go to February, I could just use the right side arrow instead of the drop down, so on and so forth. I'm going to put it back on January. Underneath that, you have a slider of sorts, which also goes through the month. Now, when I use that slider, look at the mark on your visualization. It's moving to catch up to whatever month you're in. We're going to drag it all the way backwards. Underneath that, you have your animation controls. You have rewind, stop, and play. And to the right of that, you have a series of icons with lines on them. You can change the speed of your playback, slow, normal, or fast. And it's defaulting to slow. Then you have a show history area. You're going to check the box in front of show history and do the drop down arrow. So instead of anything that's selected, we want the marks to show history for all. So we're going to select all. And we're going to leave the length at all. And the length represents the number of pages in history. So notice here under show, it's on marks. Trails is dimmed out and both is also dimmed out. And underneath marks, we have format none. We're going to leave fade checked and you'll see what happens when we run it. So depending on the mark style, so our marks are set to automatic on the marks card, trails won't be available to you. So you'll see in just a few minutes how to use trails and what they do. But right now we're cool with just marks and we have the fade option selected. So how does this work? We're going to go ahead and press the right arrow button so it starts animating the visualization. And you see it's automatically going through each month. And when it gets to the next month, the previous mark fades. And if you wanted to speed it up, you could speed it up. And I'm going to reverse it. I'm using reverse to go back. So it's going backwards now. I'm using the reverse button. And I made it as fast as it will go. So now it's back on January. So notice the title now says sales by month over time - January. So I ran it backwards and it's on January now. So it's only showing the mark. Now, in order for it to show trails, we need to change the type of mark that's being used. So let's go to our automatic drop down on the marks card and change it to circle. And now we're going to go back to the show history drop down on the controls on the right. And you'll notice that trails and both are now available. Let's choose trails for this one. And for trails, let's go to the format drop down underneath. And I'm going to create a dashed line. I think I'm going to use the dashed line. And now I'm going to go ahead and play this animation again. So I'm going to use the play button, which is on the right. And you can see the difference between using a mark or using a trail. And now I'm going to reverse it so it goes back to January. And we're going to go back to show history again. And this time we're going to select both. And we'll go ahead and run it. So we're still getting our previous mark fading, but that way you can have both. And reverse it so it goes back to January. So pretty cool, the ability to animate a visualization. And we started by putting the month of order date in the pages shelf after we populated columns and rows. And that's what caused the controls to show up on the right side. Go ahead and save your file. So you do not have to use a numeric field for your page trails animations. So I'm on the average sales and profit by state province heat map that we did earlier. And for this one, I'm going to have you do it on your own. I'm going to have you copy state province from the bottom of the marks card 2 pages and then play the animation and see what it looks like. And you can see how the mark is just traveling along, going state by state. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. And you can too. Actually, I'm going to reverse it. And once I reverse it and it gets all the way back to the beginning, I'm going to speed that up. We're going to stop it. And I don't know that this would be beneficial at all for any analysis. I mean, if you want to keep it, you can keep it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the pages shelf and click on the state province pill and delete it. And then it's as if we never did that. Save your file again. I've already brought up a new sheet to get ready for our next lesson where we'll be creating parameters. Now, just a reminder, a parameter is a workbook variable that can replace a constant. The beauty of using parameters is that you can show parameter controls on a viz, and users can select the measures to be used on the X and Y axes. So, for example, they might want to see quantity and discount, or they might want to see profit and sales, something like that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So what we're going to do to start creating a parameter is we're going to use the drop down arrow that's at the top of your data pane. I'm pointing to it on the screen. So we can do it this way. So we're going to do that drop down arrow and select Create Parameter. And we're going to name this parameter Choice 1 Selector. So not a name that makes a lot of sense right now, but you'll see as we get into this how we're going to use these. We want to give this parameter a data type of string. And at the bottom, under allowable values, we're going to do the option button for list. And then we're going to type in our values. So you're going to click where it says click to add. And we're going to type discount and press your tab key, and it will show you how it displays and take you down to the next click to add. And then you actually have to click to add another one. We're going to type profit and tab. Click to add. We have 2 more. Quantity. And lastly, sales. So I will say here that all of what we're doing will make more sense when we're a little bit more along in the process. So we created a parameter named Choice 1 Selector. It has a string data type, and we're using a list that we populated of values. We're going to go ahead and click OK at the bottom. So notice in your data pane, at the bottom, there's a section called Parameters. They already had 2 in here that came with the data set, and we just created our own, and it's called Choice 1 Selector. So in your field list, what we want to do is we're going to right click on Choice 1 Selector. We want to actually duplicate it. So let's do that. And then it gives us Choice 1 Selector and Choice 1 Selector Copy. And the only edit we're going to make to the copy is its name. So I'm going to right click on it and choose Edit. I'm going to get rid of the word copy at the end of the name. And it immediately starts screaming at me in red that that name already exists. We're going to further modify this so it says Choice 2 Selector. And then it stops screaming. So we wanted the same thing. We wanted the string data type, and we wanted the list of available values. So we made a duplicate of it and just had to change the name. And then we're going to go ahead and click OK. So we have 2 parameters at this point, Choice 1 Selector and Choice 2 Selector. Now we're going to create a calculated field, and you'll get introduced to another pre-built function. So this time we're going to do it from the drop-down arrow at the top of the data pane. We can create a calculated field from there as well. And this calculation, we're going to name placeholder 1. And we're going to use the case function. So start typing case. Now case, if you expand on the right so you can see the list of functions, notice the syntax of case. So case is another way of doing that if, then, else, if, else end construct. It will give similar results. However, it's a different construct. So after case, we're going to start typing choice, and we're going to choose Choice 1 Selector. I'll explain the rest of it once we get it all in. I'm going to press enter, and now I'm going to type the when, or access the when function. And now we're going to type discount in single quotes. We're going to use the then function on the same line. And now type discount and grab the field. So when we set up our parameter, we built a list of 4 items: discount, profit, quantity, and sales. All right. So this is, in the first one we created was choice 1 selector, right? It's saying if they choose discount, then display discount. We're going to do enter. We're not quite done with this case statement yet. The next line is another when, and single quote profit, then, and you want the profit field here. Enter. We have 2 more when then statements to do. So we're going to do when. The next one is going to be quantity, then the quantity field. And our last when, this one is going to be sales, then the sales field. And then we're going to enter one more time and type the end statement. So we named this placeholder 1. It has a case statement that's related to the first parameter that we built. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Just like we did with our parameter, we're going to duplicate our calculated field, placeholder 1. And we're going to edit its copy. And we're going to get rid of the word copy at the end of the name. And we're going to change it to placeholder 2. And in the case statement, we're going to change it to choice 2 selector. So we don't have to build the whole thing all over again. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. Now we're about halfway through this process, just so you know. And what we're going to do on our new sheet, let's drag placeholder 2 to columns and placeholder 1 to rows. We're going to drag the customer last name to the detail card on Marks. And we're going to drag the region field under location to color. So right now, we're not done. You'll see on your y-axis, you have placeholder 1 and placeholder 2 is on your x-axis. In your data pane, you're going to right click on choice 1 selector and choose show parameter, and do the same for choice 2 selector. So they show over on the right. Now we're going to go up to columns and right click on sum of placeholder 2. And we don't want this to be aggregated, so we're going to make it a dimension. And do the same with sum of placeholder 1. And just so you know, another way we could have done that, instead of doing each one of these placeholders individually, we could have gone to the analysis menu and unchecked aggregate measures. It's unchecked now. If I check it, you notice it puts sum of placeholder 1 and 2 back. And I could go there and uncheck it, and it does what we did manually a minute ago. So I just thought you would want to know that as well. So right now, we're in a situation where we can actually test what we've done to this point. We're not quite finished, and I'll explain why when we do our test. So over on your right side, notice that both selectors are on discount. So I'm going to leave choice 1 selector on discount, and for choice 2 selector, I'm going to select profit. So notice that my visualization updated. I'm going to go to my choice 1 selector, and I'm going to select sales. Again, the visualization updates. What doesn't update are the titles of the axes. So they're still saying placeholder 1 and placeholder 2. Let's put both of these back on discount, both of our selectors back on discount. And we're going to create another calculated field that will address the axes titles. So I'm going to go to my drop down at the top of the data pane, create calculated field. And we're going to name this X axis title. And it's going to be another case statement. So I'm going to go ahead and grab case, and I can actually collapse this over on the right. And it's going to be choice 2 selector, which will show up on your list. And then I'm going to enter and do when, single quote, discount, then, single quote, discount. Go down one line, and we're going to do another when, then, when, profit, then profit. Next line is going to be when quantity, then quantity. So these are the list items that we made. And the last one is going to be when sales, then sales. After that line, we're going to use else. And then we're going to start typing null, and you can get that in. And then underneath that, we're going to access end. So it's saying to change the title of the axis based on the selector, the selection chosen in the choice 2 selector. And it's specifically going to change the x-axis title. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. So now in your field list, so we don't have to do it from scratch, we're going to right click on x-axis title. And we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to edit the duplicate. And we're going to name this one, we're going to get rid of copy at the end, but we're going to name this one y-axis title. And in the case statement, we're going to change it to choice 1 selector. And we're ready to do OK. We have a little bit more to do, and then we'll be able to fully test this out. So what we want to do is we want to double click on each axis and delete the title. Remember, when we tested our parameters, the titles were not changing, but we did calculated fields to fix that. So we've deleted the titles from both of them. And then we're going to drag our x-axis title to columns. And we're going to drag the y-axis title calculated field to rows. So notice, because our selectors are both set to discount, both of them are saying discount. And so Now, if we make selections, they will change. But before we do that, we run a rotate the y-axis title. Going to right click on it and rotate the label so it looks like that. And we want to edit the titles of our parameters over on the right. So next to choice 1 selector, I'm going to do the drop down and edit title. And I'm going to put this one as first choice. And for the second one, you're going to name it second choice. And click OK. Now we're ready to test. For my first choice, I'm going to leave it on discount. And my second choice, I'm going to choose quantity. So notice that the x-axis title updated there when I chose quantity. So your end users will be able to do any choices that they need for their analysis, and the axes will update accordingly. And now we just have to name the sheet. Since it's so variable, I'm going to name it Analyzing by Region and Customer. So regardless of what they pick, it's still analyzing by region and customer. And if you hover over the marks, you'll see both titles, customer last, region, and the placeholder 1 and placeholder 2 values. So placeholder 1 at this point is quantity, placeholder 2 is sales. Pretty cool. Go ahead and save. So you got to see some really cool advanced features during this module. We started by showing you how to view data. And also I showed you how you can describe the sheet from the worksheet menu. Really cool features. We got to change our mark sizes again. You got exposed to using presentation mode, which is really cool if you just want everyone to see all of your visualizations on a big screen. We added annotations. You learned how to exclude data on the fly and how to include it again. We customized mark shapes. And then we added drop-down selectors. You saw the type of drop-down that supports a search box selector. And we added a slider selector. And you saw that depending on the selector, the customization options vary. Then we created an animated visualization using page trails by placing a field in the pages shelf. We ended by creating parameters, which we then ended up creating like 4 calculated fields so that the users can make a choice from each parameter that's visible on the right side. The data will update to what they need to see for analysis. We also created calculated fields that would make sure that the axes titles would update to the proper selections. In this extensive course, we started by connecting to a variety of data sources, in particular text, Excel, and Access database data sources. We started calculating user-defined fields. So that's when we started using some of Tableau's predefined functions. We also learned how to calculate percentages, how to show totals, and how to apply the if-then logic in a calculation. We applied more logical functions using the if-then else construct along with the and function. And we moved on and learned how to discretize data by making it discrete, so individual segments that act as labels versus continuous, where you have a continuous axis. We learned how to manipulate text using a calculated field, and we used the start with function at that point. And throughout, you learned how to aggregate data and change the aggregate. We started customizing and saving. That's when you learned how to add titles and captions, how to modify font sizes and colors, adding colors and labels, changing mark sizes, adding reference lines, printing to PDF, saving packaged workbooks, and creating a workbook data extract, which you would need to refresh if the original data source is changed. Then you would have to refresh to get those changes in your extract. We were able to save a workbook to Tableau Cloud, and you learned how to export data. We started exploring some advanced features like describing a sheet, changing the mark size using presentation mode, adding annotations, excluding data on the fly, customizing mark shapes, and you created your first animated visualization using page trails. We also started creating parameters, which are referenced in calculated fields, and then you learned how to use parameters on a sheet. That's when we created our first choice and second choice parameters.